You are listening to the New Book of Daniel podcast. The entire world is dealing with something we've never faced before. I call it global house arrest. We can debate the merits of that on a different show, and we will, but with these stay-home orders comes new and different kinds of stresses in our lives. To discuss ways to alleviate these stresses, our guest today is psychologist Lynn Laird. We'll hear what Lynn has to say on today's New Book of Daniel podcast. Welcome to the New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bobinski. I'll be your host on this adventure. I need to quickly tell you that our show sponsor is the Lyft Realty Group in Northern Idaho. If you're looking for a vacation home, a new place to live, or some nice property in one of the most beautiful parts of the country, Northern Idaho is absolutely beautiful. Ty Daniels up there with the Lyft Realty Group at lyftrealtygroup.com can help you out. You can give Ty a call at 208-640-6333. Ty is your guy for realty in Northern Idaho, 208-640-6333. I also should tell you to subscribe to our show if you haven't done so already. Just click that red button, click the little bell, and then click the word all. And then you're going to get notified every time we upload a new show, because I don't do it with any kind of regularity. So if you want to find out when I do it, just click the red subscribe button, click the bell, click the word all. And with that, let's just jump into our conversation with Lynn. Lynn is a family friend. Her kids and my daughter went to the same speech and debate club for a couple of years. That's how we got to become friends. And the other day we were talking about how to alleviate some of the stress that people are experiencing from Fauci's model predicting millions of American deaths that never materialized. Like I said, we'll talk about more about that in a different show, and rest assured we will. But we're still experiencing the stress of these lockdowns. So we said, let's get Lynn on the show. Let's talk about it. So without further ado, here's Lynn Laird. Joining me today is Dr. Lynn Laird. Lynn, thank you for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate you having me on today.
My pleasure. I have been talking with you a little bit offline about the need to do this, show to help people with the stress of dealing with staying at home, these stay-at-home orders.
Yeah, it's definitely a stressful time.
And as you were saying something before, you said it's not just a novel virus, it's a
novel situation.
Yes.
For us to deal with. Yes.
And so we're dealing with stress levels that most folks just aren't accustomed to. Mm-hmm. I was talking to one of my clients the other day who is staying home and working out of his house, and his wife is staying home as well. And they're not used to being home together all day long.
It's definitely been a stress on a lot of marriages.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just saying, dude, help me, man. I'm just not used to working next to my wife all day long. This is really tough. So anyways, Lynn Laird, tell us a little bit about your background, where you went to school, what degree you have, those kind of things.
All right. Well, I have a Psy.D, and it's a psychology doctorate is what that stands for. Got that something like 100 years ago, more like 20, and went to school in Missouri at Forest Institute of Professional Psychology. I interned in California and have worked there for a while before moving here with my family.
Here being
Idaho, yes.
Idaho, yes.
Yeah.
So for those who might not know, or if you're just picking this up in the midterm here, middle of the show, Lynn's kids and my daughter were in the same speech and debate club together, and that's how I know Lynn. Yeah. So we've known each other for a few years through that.
Yep.
So anyways, and then I said, you know what, we've been dealing with so much stress, Lynn, I have to have you on the show to talk about how do we deal with stress. So you've been in practice for, you said you've 20 years now, you've been a psychologist.
Psychologist, yes.
Thank you. And you wrote down some things to talk about. I wrote down some things to talk about because as an executive management type coach, I deal with people dealing with stressful situations too. So I thought, well, maybe I can add to the plate, to the smorgasbord of ideas we have here. We've got over a dozen of them that we came up with.
We have a few. I think there's going to be some overlap probably on some of these, but
yeah,
I think we'll.
But I figure if somebody's watching this, that they get at least 1 or 2 golden nuggets out of it.
Yes.
It'll be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I would say all of these things aren't maybe necessary for everybody. Most everything we've talked about it's fairly simple. Nothing terribly complicated, just like to think to do it, I think is the important thing. Just kind of a little nudge to people that, hey, you can take care of yourself. And here are some ways that you can do that.
Okay, well, let's just jump right in, deep end of the pool. What do you got number 1?
Let's do that. Number 1, we've got journaling. Now, I know some people probably aren't too terribly excited about that, but I think understanding what we're thinking about really helps us to understand what's bothering us. Why are we feeling this stress? And so just becoming aware of our own thoughts. And so many times, especially under stress, we tend to catastrophize things and we make it worst case scenario, which can cause a ton of anxiety and depression. And, the reports about the calls to the suicide hotline going up just astronomically, people are very, very stressed. And so when you can kind of catch what you're thinking and ask yourself, is this even true? Do I know this is going to happen? It may or may not.
Explain that. What do you mean?
Well, right now, we're on lockdown or quarantine or, everybody's got their words for it.
I'm calling it a lockdown.
You're calling it a lockdown. Whatever you want to call it, people are stuck at home for the most part. And
I think the legal term for it is house arrest, but keep going.
But yes, you digress. The point is that we're kind of given dates for like a potential ending. But then the date comes and the date goes and it's been extended again to another possible date in the future where we're going to revisit again. And so it's easy to say this is never going to end. Or, is it going to go all through summer? I'm going to miss my entire summer. It's really easy to just kind of go there.
Okay.
And so the reality is we don't know how long it's going to last. So stick with what you do know and what you can control. And
so if I'm journaling on that and I write something out, do I actually write out the sentence, is this true? Or should I just stop and ask myself out loud, is this true?
Either way, it works. There's no hard and fast rule to this. Do what works. If you're going to get writer's cramp because you write a lot, maybe you don't have to write that part, but if it helps you to follow it, because it's something you can go back to and you can kind of follow your train of thought and, it kind of go from there. It really doesn't matter how you do it. I think the important thing is to just pick up the pen or pencil and do it. And
now you say pick up the pen or pencil, and that reminds me of something that I heard a long time ago. That says if you're going to do journaling, it is best to do it by writing with your hand instead of typing it out.
Yes, I would agree with that. But if you are really adverse to doing that, and that's a deal breaker for you, then type it out.
Okay.
I have a client of mine, he'll use his phone, and that's how he journals, with his phone. It works for him. Yeah.
So he just texts himself on his little notepad.
Honestly, I don't even know if he texts or if he does the, talk to your phone thing. I'm not sure which way he does it, but whatever he does, it works for him. So be creative and use what works. Ultimately, that's the point. And along those lines, I'm a big fan of gratitude journaling, and that just takes it to the next level, I think. Because in these times, especially right now, where we don't know, what's going to happen tomorrow. We never know what's going to happen tomorrow, but right now we're feeling that uncertainty. It can be really easy to focus in on the negative, and it's so important to balance that, if you will, with some good things. Today was a beautiful day. I spent a lot of time outside. It was wonderful. We've talked before about how much I love sunsets. And, if there's a beautiful sunset, I have gone in my journal and just journaled about the beautiful sunset for the day, to the end of the day, and how how wonderful it was. And it's a very calming, peaceful thing for me.
So writing about what you're thankful for. When you say gratitude journal, I'm thankful for this.
Yes.
I'm grateful for this.
Yes, absolutely. Because we can always find something to be grateful for.
And this actually this ties into a principle that I use with my clients, which is you're going to go where you're focused.
Yes, absolutely.
So if I'm just writing about all the negative stuff out there, then I'm going to be swimming in a pool of negativity.
Exactly. Which is why it's important, if you're doing that, that you're asking yourself, is this true? You know, is it all negative? And some of it might be true, but a lot of it isn't. A lot of it's going to be our imaginings. That's just the way our minds work.
Or fears.
Yes, exactly.
Aren't
so it's
necessarily
important.
true.
Yeah. So it's important to pull back to what you know is true. What can you be grateful for? Can you be, grateful, for, again, a sunset, or having food to eat, or that spouse that might be a little irritating because you're not used to spending so much time with them, but you have somebody, you can be grateful for that person, and you find the qualities that you're grateful for and that you fell in love with. And, so you can find that positive even in the midst of hard times.
Okay. Sounds good. I like it.
Me too.
Maybe I'll even try that. What else you got for me?
Actually, the next thing I would have would be your suggestion that you had shared with me.
Oh, which was
the Zoom meeting that you had talked about with somebody. Just putting Zoom on. So why don't you share that story?
Okay, so I was talking to a friend of mine who's not used to working from home. He lives back east. Guy's a total extrovert, and he called me up because he says, I'm going nuts. I said, well, and I was working on some project that I didn't need to have the Zoom for anything else, and I didn't need to have anything else going. I said, look, why don't we just connect on Zoom, kind of like what you and I are doing now?
Yeah.
And we don't even have to talk. It's kind of like being in the same room together. And I was doing work and he was doing work. It's just like being in the same room. You just every once in a while look up and say a joke or ask a question, or there was just a sense of being there. And that helped him tremendously. He just felt like that was great. So
and I thought that was a brilliant idea. So that's why it made it on my list, because I think it's fantastic, especially for those who are alone.
And extroverted.
Or even the introverts are even having a hard time now. So it really probably would work across the board.
Okay.
So yeah, good recommendation there.
Thank you.
We'd also talked about developing a routine or keeping a routine. There's jokes and memes all over the internet about, getting out of your jammies, and I think it's important to do that, to keep your routine of when you wake up and when you have breakfast and when you shower and getting dressed. And if you wear makeup, wear the makeup. Even if you're not necessarily going anywhere, just keep that part of your routine, because there's a sense of normalcy in that. And right now that's really what we need to grab onto.
This reminds me of when, decades ago now, there was a book that I read about when you're looking for a job and you're out of work, get up every day, get dressed as if you're going to the type of job you want to do. I just get ready, get your shower, get ready for work. And then go make looking for work your job.
Yes. Exactly.
So what you're saying is get up, act like you're still, so if you've been laid off or furloughed, you can still get up and act with some sort of focus.
Exactly, because there's a mindset there of I'm getting ready. I'm not just lying down and saying it's all over. I'm getting ready for my life, whatever that might be today.
Cool.
And, keeping a routine of, when you go to bed, when you wake up, when you have your meals, having a normal rhythm to the day, and making plans for the week, kind of planning out what you're going to be doing.
The schedule your week is like, figure out what you want to do. If you can't leave your house, then decide, let's clean the house. Just what part of the house am I going to clean today? Write it down.
Yes.
Put a by when on there. Get it done by 2:00, or 4 o'clock or something, just as you would as if you were at work.
Mhm.
And maybe even set some goals for yourself
Mhm.
using the SMART formula. And a lot of folks have heard of it, and a lot of folks have heard of it from the government's perspective, and they mess it up like the government always does. But a lot of times the government's version of SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic in time. And I say, well, if it's attainable, then isn't it realistic? So anyways, the better A word is action. What's the specific action? So is there a specific SMART? Is it specifically measurable? Is there a specific action? Is it realistic? And does it have a specific time attached to it?
Mhm.
And if we can, like, I will clean all of the appliances in the kitchen, dust them, clean them, whatever, before 2 p.m., you now have a SMART goal. Okay, so
Yes.
you specific action, a specific measurement, all of the appliances, and by a certain
Mhm.
time. So
Yeah.
that's when I say schedule your week. If you've never done that before, if you've never set SMART goals, this is a cool way to start. But it's just I think, a way to keep that focus going.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. I don't know about the rest of the world, but me and a lot of people I've talked to, there's all these things that, like, I'm going to get to it. Whether it's the pantry, cleaning that out, organizing it, or whatever. And now is a good time to do those things. You probably won't get to everything. I'm hoping people won't have time to get to everything. I'm hoping this will be done. But start somewhere and do something.
I should add to write those goals down
Yes, you did mention it. And I think that's absolutely key.
and leave it on the kitchen counter or someplace where you see it,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
out to the refrigerator, so that
Yes.
oh, I'm supposed to be doing that. Okay.
We have a whiteboard on our refrigerator, so that's where those things get written down, because everybody's at the refrigerator multiple times a day. So it's a good reminder to have it there in our house.
Okay.
But do what works for you. That's kind of my fallback. Like, what works? What's going to
Yeah.
work?
I
That's
like a
what you
piece
gotta
of
do.
paper on the counter because it's not supposed to be there, and it
Mhm.
draws my attention. It's like, okay, I need to do that.
Yeah. See, at my house, it would get lost with all the other pieces of paper.
Oh,
So that wouldn't work for us. So
ah,
again, you have to do what works.
yes. What else you got on the list?
All right. The next one actually is a little bit deeper, maybe. We had talked about the fact that a lot of people right now are grieving. And we talked about um, balancing, for lack of a better word, that grief with the gratitude. So we've already kind of touched on the gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
But people are grieving. They're grieving their loss of their jobs, their income, that sense of security that comes with those things, that the sense of freedom that we're used to having. There's some major losses. The relationships that people have lost by not being able to go to church, by not going to work, not meeting friends for coffee or lunch, going out on dates with your spouse. There's a lot of things that we have lost, and it's okay to grieve those things. And I think it's important to grieve those things. And we've talked about some people that we know that have gone through really grieving and doing a lot of crying and just feeling really sad. And my experience with people is that kind of thing kind of comes and goes in cycles. So you can go through that, and then you can kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and march on for a while, but don't be surprised if it comes in another wave another time. And again, I think it's important to acknowledge that. And that's one of the things when I do talk with people about gratitude journaling, that this isn't a form of denial and saying these other bad things, these sad things aren't happening, but it's kind of finding the silver lining in that dark cloud.
So you mentioned the grief and the grief cycle and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about this with my wife the other day, because there is this cycle, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of people think that it's a linear cycle,
Oh yeah.
but it's not. I mean,
No.
while we're talking, I just pulled this up: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It doesn't have to go in that order. It can bounce all
Mm.
over the place.
It does. It does bounce all over the place.
So
Yep.
one day you might have denial, the next day you might have bargaining, the next day you might go back to denial again, the next day you might go to acceptance, then you're back to depression. I mean, it
Yeah,
just
it's not like you go through a phase and you're done, check it off the list, move on. It doesn't work like that. It's we're way more dynamic than that. We're way more complicated than that. Um,
I
it'd be
describe
nice if you could say, okay, phew, I'm done with that. I put it away.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
described it as not because people could think of it as a ladder, is it a step by step by step. I think
mhm.
of it as diving into the grief pool, and the water kind of flows around, and sometimes you're in the grief area, and sometimes you're in the anger area, then you're in the bargaining area, and it just wherever the water's going, you just happen to go there until you get out of the pool.
Yeah, yeah. And even then, it might come back and visit you again,
Yeah,
or you might go back and visit it again.
it might rain on you. Yes.
It might rain on you. Yes. Indeed, indeed. Uh,
What else you got?
um, a little different than what we talked about before is in terms of like making plans for your week, but to kind of dream a little about the future. A lot of people had a lot of plans put on hold,
Mm.
travel plans. I know that's affected somebody very near and dear to me. And that it's a question that keeps coming up. When can I go on this trip? Can I go on this trip? And the answer keeps being, I don't know. But while it's still, I don't know in terms of when, I say it's time to dream a little bit about what you want to do. Where do you want to go? What do you want to see when you're there?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've kind of had this conversation with a client of mine as well. And I said, just make your plans in pencil right now.
Mm, I love that.
Because I think we need to make plans. We need to think about our futures. But we also need to understand that we live in a very dynamic world and things can change and things do change. Sometimes on a dime, like this time. So we don't know when unrestricted travel is really going to be an option again. But when it is an option, if you're one of those people that's had plans put on hold, now's the time to maybe think a little bit more deeply about, making the best of that time. Um,
So this is interesting. Make your plans in pencil, because just this week, my wife and I were talking about going on a trip
mhm,
out of country, visiting, just doing some traveling, and we know we can't do that right now.
mhm.
But that didn't prevent me from getting online and getting excited about it and
Yeah,
reading up on it and
yeah.
learning as much as I could about that
Mhm,
country and its culture. Well, I've never really spent time there. I've been there before, but I've never spent a lot of time there before.
mhm.
So I just that kind of thing, and also it reminds me of um, when I was in the Navy. One of my division officers told me that his father was a prisoner of war in Vietnam,
Mm.
and talk about the ultimate, lockdown.
Yeah.
And when are you going to get out? And the people who they talk about, the people who survived and the people who died and whatnot. The people who survived were the ones that had hope. They didn't know when, but they knew it would happen.
Yes.
The ones that wouldn't last long, that got really depressed and whatnot and gave up, where they would set a date. We're gonna be out of here by Christmas, and then Christmas would come and go. We're gonna be out of here by
Mhm.
Valentine's Day, and that would come and go. But the guys that they just had this unwavering belief that they're going to get out, and I will do these things. And one of the guys, this guy's father, he said he in his mind he designed a house
Hmm.
and decided that it was going to be made out of bricks. And every day he got up and he mentally built the house.
Wow.
Mentally, that kept him
Yes.
focused on something achievable, something accomplishable,
Mhm.
and future hope. And
Yes.
wouldn't you know, when he got out,
He
he
built that house.
and built the house.
Yes, he did. Yep. That's a powerful story. And I think that really touches on kind of that first point again, even, in terms of, the way that we're choosing to think about things, and how it's so important to just know that things aren't always going to be the way we want them to be when we want them to be. And to not catastrophize that it's never going to be the way I want it to be. And to just, I think these 2 points really come together very well in that way.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Next up.
Switching gears, pretty good here, would be movement and exercise.
Movement and exercise.
Yes. And I think that, again, should probably go into that making your plan for the day or your plan for the week. Because in some areas right now here in Idaho, we actually can go out. We're on what you're calling a house arrest or lockdown or quarantine, pick your name again. We are still free to go out and walk and enjoy the sunshine and go places.
So long as it's not too far from your house. That's what it's
not too far from your house. And
that's a relative statement, but I don't want to digress.
And as long as it's essential, another relative statement, right? But the point is that we can get out, and there are parts of the country where they really are locked down and not able to get out so freely. And particularly people in more urban areas where they're in apartments, we have backyards and front yards. So even if we are confined to our property, we still can get outside and, enjoy some grass and flowers and things like that. Other people are probably much more limited in terms of what they can do outside. So taking advantage of their time inside probably is a little bit more challenging when it comes to staying fit and just active and moving. Now, you talked about cleaning the house and things like that, and those are good ways to move. This may or may not be the time to start a new exercise routine and doing your SMART goals. You can do that, but for my purposes right now, I think it's really important for people to not be sitting down, and that's true all the time. As we're sitting here. But there's a time for sitting, but not all the time. We do need to be moving. And so whether it's cleaning your house or getting up and doing some stretches or,
well, this affects us on a physiological level, because it affects us on a physiological level because it gets our endorphins going.
Yes, physiologically, psychologically, it's all intertwined. Our bodies and our health affects our mental health.
What's coming to mind is a lot of folks, we can still order from Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some folks in the country, I'm told, are being extended to the end of May, which is like people are going to be going off the rails.
Yeah.
But I ordered last year for when I travel these exercise bands.
Mm-hmm.
To where you can do exercises and basically a whole exercise routine. Because when I go to a hotel room, if they don't have a gym and I want to get a workout, I can just pull out my exercise bands and get a workout in my hotel room without making a bunch of noise from people down below me.
Yes, I'm sure they're thankful.
And they fit into my luggage real easy, but they're not that expensive, and you can order those off of Amazon.
Yep. Yeah. So there are a lot of options out there for people. And I just say, again, find something, find what works. What will you actually do?
Push-ups, sit-ups, those kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to buy equipment, but you can. If you'll use it, go ahead. If you're not going to use it, don't bother.
Or even just planking. I got a buddy in Arizona.
Yep.
He swears by planking.
Yeah. It's a great core exercise. It's wonderful. Yeah. And for those, again, who really aren't able to get outside much, I'd say get near a window, get some sunshine on you while you're doing it, open the window, get some fresh air, simulate outside as best you can.
Okay.
Make do with what you've got.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Not ideal. Outside is better, but, again, you got to do the best you can with what you have.
Some places I've read won't let you go out for a walk unless you're walking a dog. So
borrow a neighbor's dog.
My suggestion, yes.
Yeah.
Call somebody
Or
that has a
actually,
dog and
even
go,
better, Daniel,
yeah,
even better, foster a dog.
there you go.
Foster a dog. That's always a need. Dogs, cats, their shelters always need foster parents for animals. So
Sure.
that would be a way to do that.
I tell you what, though, if I had one of my neighbors come by and say, "Hey, can I walk your dog?" I'd be going, "Sure,
Yeah,
go for
yeah,
a walk."
might as well. Yeah. um, our next point was actually one of your points, and that is having an accountability partner.
Ah, yes.
Yes. And so again, that can apply to any of these things that we've already talked about, especially with the exercise, moving, if you're setting your goals and really want to achieve them, having somebody that you can check in with and is expecting you to check in with is good. And it's another opportunity to build a relationship, which is so important all the time. But especially now, because so many relationships really are just not, people don't have the opportunity that they normally would to.
This, like you said, this applies to any of these situations. So if I was going to do an exercise regimen, and if I wanted you can go online, you can pull down how to build up to X number of push-ups per day or X number of sit-ups per day. And there's a whole program that a couple of years ago, I pulled down and started following, because I wanted to achieve some push-up goals. I actually did 70 push-ups in 1 minute. Yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, I worked up to it though. Thank you. But
of course you did.
Right. And having that accountability though, I told my wife and my daughter, this is what I want to do. And they didn't get down and do it with me, but it was a nightly ritual that Dad's going to do his routine to build up to it.
Yeah, you verbalize it to another person.
Yes, and that's what we're talking about here.
Yep.
And as a 30-year executive coach working with people, it's the accountability that gets the results. People, when I give somebody an assignment in a coaching assignment, the way that I coach people is they have to have that assignment done within 48 hours and emailed to me within 72. Because if I don't give them that, they will wait until the night before our next meeting, and then they'll do the assignment that I give them.
Yeah.
And they've learned nothing. We have nothing to talk about at that point. So when I say, look, I really need you to have that in my inbox within 72 hours of me giving you the assignment, there's an accountability, right?
Yes.
Part of the coaching agreement, and they get it done. And then when we talk a couple of days later, they can explore all the things they've learned about. But that wouldn't have happened if there wasn't that accountability. That's why I brought that up.
Yes, I think that's an important point. So I'm glad you did bring that up. The next one that we have on our list is a big one, and that is limiting social media.
No.
I know. And it gets worse, Daniel. Limiting all media.
Oh, well.
I know.
Kind of like the meme that I saw the other day, that if we put the media on lockdown for a month, 80% of our problems would go away.
There's a good chance of that. There's a good chance.
But there's what you're saying then.
Yeah, because I've not watched the numbers. How many people are getting it, how many people are dying and whatnot. I hear from other people. So it seems to me like, we've kind of hit our peak and we're on the downward slope now. That's my understanding of it. Because again, to me, it all comes down to what can I control? I can't control any of that out there. I control me. And all I know is all that talk and all that hype and all the negativity brings me down. And I can't afford to be brought down. There's no point in it. I have no use for it. So that's my personal take on it. Some people want to be a little bit more informed than that. So for those people, I would say, again, limit it. Don't be on there every single day, hours and hours and hours.
Which is difficult because social media is where we have a lot of our connections with people now.
Indeed. And I would even say disconnections with people right now, because there's so much conflict. There's, people that say this was the best thing we could have done, and other people are like, are you crazy? And there's a huge divide over that. And social media is just a terrible platform for having intellectual discussions or meaningful discussions.
I couldn't agree more.
So
Let me explain why I think that is. So maybe
okay.
this I think helps some people understand why. Is it's a public discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a private discussion. So therefore, there's no way to save face. If somebody makes an opinion and they put it online and then you counter them publicly, now they've got to save face. You've given them no opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I had a friend post something. This friend actually agrees with me on a lot of things and posted something. And I looked at it and go, I wonder if that's true. Because when I see something like that, I'll go on and I'll do a little research on it. And I did. And I found out that it was a totally debunked piece of information. And so rather than put it in the comments section, I sent that person a private message and said, hey,
Yes.
Didn't want to embarrass you publicly, but this is not true.
Yeah.
And I got to thank you back. I said, I didn't want to, I emphasized, didn't want to embarrass you. And they thanked me and they took it down.
Yes.
You were allowed to save face.
Absolutely.
I did want to throw that suggestion out too. If you disagree with somebody, do it privately.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially if you value the relationship, that's really important too. And so I think it's just important, again, to kind of really minimize the amount of time that you're spending getting all this information.
Instead, we could be reading books and watching documentaries and
yes.
My wife and my daughter watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy and
yes. Time again, do those things that you've always wanted to do, and like I'll get around to that. I have a stack of books. If my life actually had slowed down, I would have made a major dent in my reading list, but my life hasn't slowed down very much. So I would say that I think you're the one that had said, when we talked about this earlier, well, life abhors a vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum.
yes.
And so if you take away that social media or, the 24/7 news, whatever it is that you're filling your brain with, what are you going to do instead? And I think these things that we've talked about, moving and exercising and, volunteer work, I think that might be on our list somewhere here too. Find somewhere to volunteer. The food banks are very busy, and they might be needing more help. I know at one point they were here. I don't know the status of it currently, but there are things that you can do that don't involve a screen. And I think it's always important to find other things to do besides sit in front of a screen and be, just taking in all this information. There are better things to do. If you are in a family, playing games with your family, talking about life, and again, those dreams and goals, and putting plans in pencil, doing that together is crucial. New recipes. I think you had mentioned your wife is spending a lot of time with new recipes.
Yeah, she's a voracious reader, and so my dad will always send over the magazines and stuff that they get. It sends them over to my wife, and my wife, she reads. I mean, while she's brushing her teeth, she's got a magazine in her hand. She doesn't matter what she's reading, and she'll come across recipes. And she's had this stack of recipes she's been collecting. Now that she's been furloughed and she's not working, she's been making some pretty cool dishes.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard my nephew, he's 12, I believe, and he's taken up baking. My sister-in-law posted the other day, she's like, I would give a kidney for some yeast right now. Thankfully, she didn't have to give up a kidney. She was able to get a hold of some yeast, and then she posted a beautiful picture of these garlic rolls that he made.
Awesome.
And they were just beautiful. And to my knowledge, this boy has never wanted to cook, but he's made banana bread, and now he's made rolls. I don't know what else he's made that she maybe hasn't posted about, but what a beautiful time that they can spend in the kitchen working on these things together.
Yeah.
Where normally, he'd be at school and she'd be at work, and they wouldn't be doing these things. So it's really nice to be able to find those other things that really help build relationships. Or if you are alone, again, that Zoom call, with a friend. While
Even while
you're
you're cooking, set up the Zoom meeting, and while you're talking, chit chat in the kitchen while you're talking. I mean,
uh
while you're cooking.
Exactly. And I just think that that's such a wonderful opportunity. And that actually is kind of going to lead me into our next thing too, was the Zoom meetings are great, but also just a regular old phone call. We're so used to texting and messaging and all of that, that rarely does anybody make a phone call unless they text first or have just received a text from somebody. At least that's my experience. It's all about texting now. And a conversation really in real time is so much better. And, there are a lot of people out there that are lonely. And, I don't know about you. I haven't counted how many people are on my contact list. But, just, you can put that on your goals as well, to call one different person every day just to check up and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I care about you. Is there anything you need? Just to check in and let people know that they're cared about. When you think about these, the stats that we're hearing about the suicide hotline calls that are coming in, one phone call to one person can make a huge difference in those, in that person's life.
I like that.
So I think that's another really important thing to, we're talking about a lot of self-care kind of things right now. But part of that is reaching out to other people too, because community is so important.
It makes you feel useful.
Absolutely. It's good for both people. I think we need to take initiative and really reach out to people.
Okie doke. Anything else?
Actually, we've just got a couple more things. So we had talked about sleep.
Oh, yes.
Yes. When we're stressed out, when our brains are going 1,000 miles an hour thinking about all the what ifs, a lot of times that can interfere with our sleep. And so we had talked before about this, and there are a lot of different things that people can do. You had mentioned lavender oil, which I love.
Yes. So for those so we had this conversation offline, but I was last year, I want to say about a year ago, I was having a real tough time sleeping. And I talked to my naturopath about it, and she said, well, go get some lavender oil. And before you go to bed at night, rub it on the bottom of your feet, a couple of drops on the bottom of your feet. And then she goes, put a little on your pillow as well. And that didn't make sense to me. I don't like to do that, but I do wear a t-shirt to bed. So I put a little right up here under my neck. And then I guess if you put it on the bottom of your feet, it absorbs differently or better into your system.
Yeah.
But since I've been doing that, I sleep like a baby.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. I know some people are repulsed by the smell, but if you can handle the smell, boy, does it work for me.
Yeah. Well, and another alternative too would be, well, not just an alternative, but maybe even in addition to, would be magnesium. That's known to be wonderful to help people sleep. And my understanding is that a good majority of people are actually deficient in magnesium. So you can
I take magnesium as well, but I take it in pill form.
Yeah, a lot of people do. And, especially at night before you go to bed, there's also powders that you can drink. But really it's best absorbed through your skin.
Okay.
So there are sprays, but also just an Epsom salt bath. I mean, Epsom salt is magnesium. So just take a nice, warm, relaxing bath with some Epsom salt before you go to bed, to kind of get yourself relaxed and kind of in a little bit more relaxed state before you go to bed.
Now here's something that reminded me of something else. When I was in Japan, this is back in the 1980s. I spent about 6 months in Japan, and one of the big things in the culture there is bathhouses. And it's not like the bathhouse like you would think here in the United States. Not that kind of bathhouse. Genuinely a place for men to go to hang out, be men. There's nothing sexual going on, but it's a place to go sit and have a big comfy chair. They got big rows of these big overstuffed chairs, and but there's these bath sections, and we would sit in the hot water, and then we'd go into the cold dip, like
Whew.
54 degrees. Oh gosh.
Oh.
And then we'd go to the sauna for 5-10 minutes, and then back to the hot dip, and we would rotate like that 3 or 4
Yep.
times. Talk about sleeping like a rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on a whim last year, I did that in my own shower. I just
Yes.
got a real hot shower
cold.
going,
Mm-hmm.
and then I turned it real cold. Oh gosh, and then I turned it back. See, and I read up on it since then. Basically, a 3-to-1 ratio, or I'm sorry, 2-to-1 ratio. So if you keep it on cold water for say 30 seconds, which is what I do, but 15 even. Then you got to stay 30 seconds. If you're 15 seconds cold, you got to stay 30 seconds hot.
Okay.
And then 15 cold, 30.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll do 30 seconds cold, a full minute hot. And now in the morning, and when I want to stay up and get ready to go, that's how I take my showers now. I will finish cold.
Mm-hmm.
I will stop the shower in the cold water. But if I want to go to get a really good night's sleep,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the magnesium, I'll take the lavender oil, and then I'll do a hot, cold shower, but I'll end it on hot.
Mm-hmm.
And oh gosh, just so relaxing.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I've not had the nerve to do that. I've heard how wonderful it is for you, but I hate cold showers. I hate cold water. So you're braver than I. God bless you.
It is. It takes a little getting used to. What's
Yes.
really interesting though, just if anybody wants to try it, the first cycle is absolutely the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Your first 15 seconds or 30 seconds of cold water is absolutely the hardest thing. And then after that, time number 2 and time number 3 are actually quite easy.
Okay, well, I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Oh, goodness. So the next thing I think was actually the last one that we had on the list was the breathing. And this goes along really nicely too with what we just talked about with the lavender oil and with the magnesium and the showers, as you've talked about, this can be used any time of day, but particularly if you're having trouble sleeping. And it's just a breathing technique where you inhale for the count of 4, nice and deep through your nose, and then you hold it for a count of 4, and then you exhale for a count of 8. Good job. Yes, through your mouth. Perfect. And you keep doing that. I've used this when I've had trouble sleeping.
Pardon me for interrupting. I've always poo-pooed that. It's like, yeah, breathing. Yeah, so what? We all breathe.
No, we don't. I mean, we do, but barely.
But that I actually did feel more relaxed after I did just that one.
Mm-hmm. Just once. Well, yep.
So how long should I do that for?
As long as you need to. I mean, I think you'll tire out eventually and just kind of fall asleep. That's been my experience. It's like, okay, I did that,
But this is
a few times.
I could do here in my desk just when I'm stressed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Take a couple minutes and just.
Yes, because really what it does is it's working on your nervous system, and it's stimulating the parasympathetic part of your nervous system, which is the rest, relax, digest part of your nervous system. And in our culture, typically, but again, right now, with things being so intensely stressful for people, our sympathetic nervous system is really on overdrive. And, that drives the stress hormones, the adrenaline, and the cortisol and all of that.
So our sympathetic nervous system needs some sympathy, and we need.
Yes.
I gotta get the pun in there. Sorry.
And so just taking a few minutes to relax, and you can even do what we call progressive muscle relaxation as well, where you actually tense up your muscles and then you just relax. And you can just do it in muscle groups. There's probably stuff online that if you really want to know exactly how to do it, that you could reference.
Awesome.
But you just tense it up and then relax it. And you're just kind of noticing your body and feeling it. And sometimes that can help, especially if you're really wound up and you're trying the breathing and you're like, I just can't get there. Just focus in on that progressive muscle relaxation, and then work in the breathing too. And that can really help calm you down. Because right now, again, tensions are high and people are really stressed.
They really are. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. So we just have to remember to take care of ourselves. And, the nice thing about the breathing too is it, aside from all the physiological scientific part of it, it immediately just takes your brain somewhere else to, like, you're counting, you're focusing in on your breathing. So you're not thinking about all those other things that are stressing you out. So it just kind of helps bring you to a place of like the here and now. We call that grounding, because when we're in our heads, way in the future or in the past, we're not really here, and we're being robbed of our current joy.
And I'm going to multitask. I'm thinking I could do the deep breathing while mentally journaling with gratitude.
Maybe. Try it and check back in with me. Let me know how it goes.
All right. So Lynn, for those, if anybody's just jumped in, we're talking with Dr. Lynn Laird, and you are, you're based here in Idaho.
Yes, I am.
And you are a licensed psychologist, and people can call you and talk with you.
Yes.
So how can we get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me through my Facebook page, which is Healing Heart Counseling. And then I've got a nice little dash with my name, Lynn Laird, and then Psy.D, Psy period D period. Because there are several healing heart things out there, so I needed it very specific.
Okay, I will put that in the show notes down below.
Thank you.
So if someone's watching this on YouTube, they can click on the show notes, or listening in on a podcast, they can click on the show notes to find out how to get a hold of you.
That would be great.
Awesome. Well, Lynn, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing some tips. And hopefully, like I said at the beginning, if someone just took 1 or 2 golden nuggets out of this and it helps them, going to be helpful for their whole life. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me, Daniel. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. We'll talk to you. We'll talk with you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll have you back.
Thanks.
Bye now. Well, much thanks to Lynn Laird for taking time to share some very valuable tips with us. And I hope you learned a few things. I know I did. If you would like to add additional tips, you think maybe we missed something, go down below to the comments section. Leave them down there. I do read all comments. And if you want to go back and review any of the tips that Lynn shared, well, then just go down to the show notes, because on every episode that I upload, I always create a timeline with timestamps for the different subjects. So down in the show notes for each of the tips, you're going to see a timestamp. You'll know exactly where it is in the show to go look to find it, so you don't have to go hunting and pecking for it. Also, while you're down there, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Click the red subscribe button, then click the bell, then click the word all. That way, you're going to get notified whenever we upload a new show. I'm also going to encourage you to visit my columns and my opinion pieces over at uncoverdc.com. Uncoverdc.com. You can just type in the name Bobinski in the search bar, and up pops all the columns that I've written and all the podcasts that I've uploaded there as well. If you'd like to send a specific comment to me, you can do that by sending it to newbookofdaniel@outlook.com, newbookofdaniel@outlook.com. Follow me on Twitter at newbookofdaniel. Follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/newbookofdaniel. This has been the New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bobinski. I thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.